Have you ever felt that just when life seemed to finally be aligning in your favor, something inside you pulled the brake? An impulsive decision, an inexplicable procrastination, a word said at the wrong time, as if an invisible force emerged to sabotage what you desired the most. It's not bad luck. It's not a lack of willpower. There's something deeper, a forgotten part of yourself acting from the shadows. Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, believed that the true battle of the human being does not occur in the outside world, but within the mind itself. He discovered that hidden, unconscious forces shape our choices, our defeats, and even our most intimate dreams. Forces that, if ignored, condemn us to repeat patterns of pain and loss. What makes us act against what we most want? Is it just fear of success? Or do we carry within us old wounds, emotional complexes, and repressed aspects that silently direct our lives? Carl Jung was not just a psychoanalyst. He was an explorer of the human mind, a pioneer who challenged established ideas and opened new paths to understanding the psyche. Born in Switzerland in 1875, Jung initially walked alongside Sigmund Freud, but soon their visions diverged. While Freud saw the unconscious as a repository of repressed desires, Jung saw it as a broader dimension, rich in symbols, myths, and creative forces. Jung developed the concept of the personal unconscious, which gathers memories, emotions, and forgotten experiences. But his most striking contribution was the collective unconscious, a deeper layer of the mind, shared by all humanity, populated by archetypes, universal images that transcend cultures and eras. The figure of the hero, for example, is not exclusive to one myth or civilization. It reflects internal patterns present in all of us, shaping our desires, fears, and journeys of overcoming. Another essential concept introduced by Jung was the persona, the social mask we build to be accepted. The persona allows us to interact with the world, but when confused with our true identity, it disconnects us from our essence. Living only through the persona is like acting all the time on a stage, never getting in touch with the true self. Jung also pointed out the importance of integrating the hidden aspects of the psyche, not just the traumas, but also the forgotten potentials. He saw the process of individuation as the path to this integration, becoming whole, harmonizing light and shadow within. Ignoring these inner dimensions creates fertile ground for destructive patterns. When we repress parts of ourselves, these forgotten forces do not disappear. They begin to influence our choices in subtle and often self-destructive ways. Jung did not study the unconscious just to understand it, but to show that true freedom arises when we recognize and integrate our denied parts. Looking inward is, therefore, an act of courage. It is recognizing that everything we seek outside already pulses within us, waiting to be discovered and fully lived. From a very early age, we are taught to hide parts of who we are. The child who expresses anger is corrected. The teenager who shows ambition is discouraged. The girl who questions orders is silenced. Each of these experiences shapes an internal division. On one side, what we show to be accepted. On the other, what we repress, judging it inappropriate. Carl Jung called this hidden territory the shadow. The shadow represents all aspects of the personality that the ego rejects or does not recognize. Impulses such as aggressiveness, envy, and vanity are often banished, but positive qualities too, such as courage, creativity, and authenticity, are set aside to meet external expectations. In our search for acceptance, we end up exiling essential parts of ourselves. This process begins in childhood, when expressing emotions leads to rejection or punishment. We learn to hide what makes us vulnerable. But what is repressed does not disappear. It remains alive, silently influencing our thoughts, feelings, and actions. The tension between the persona, the mask we create to interact with the world, and the true self is another factor that intensifies the formation of the shadow. The persona facilitates social adaptation, but when confused with true identity, it distances us from our essence. The more we strengthen this facade, the deeper the abyss within us becomes. These hidden contents are not inactive. They emerge in disproportionate reactions, in jealousy we do not recognize, in attitudes that sabotage our own interests. Often, the shadow expresses itself when we least expect it, bringing to the surface emotions and behaviors that seem to contradict who we believe we are. Jung warned about the danger of ignoring the shadow. Everything we keep out of consciousness tends to take control, shaping our lives without us realizing it. This is how patterns of suffering repeat, like an invisible script that insists on manifesting. The shadow also projects itself onto others. What we most criticize or reject in others may be a reflection of aspects of ourselves that we do not accept. Observing these reactions closely is a powerful way to begin recognizing what has been denied internally. Integrating the shadow is not about eliminating what is uncomfortable, but about embracing our complexity. It is recognizing that light and darkness coexist within us, and that true strength is born from this acceptance. When we stop fighting against who we are, we begin, in fact, to live with more authenticity and awareness. Denying the shadow is to perpetuate internal slavery. Facing it is to open the path to a freedom that only true integration can provide. Every intense emotional experience we live through in childhood leaves a deep mark on our psyche. Some marks are light, almost imperceptible. Others, however, become invisible scars that silently shape who we are. For Jung, these marks organize themselves around emotional cores called complexes. A complex is like a small autonomous system within the mind, filled with emotions, memories, and reaction patterns tied to unresolved central themes. These complexes are not abstract concepts. They manifest in daily life in very concrete ways. They are what take control when we overreact to a seemingly harmless criticism. They are what paralyze us in the face of important opportunities, even when we know rationally that we should move forward. When a complex is activated, it's as if a part of us, still stuck in the past, begins to act again. Many of these wounds form in childhood, a period when we are most vulnerable and dependent on our caregiver's approval. This is where the so-called wounded inner child emerges. The sensitive and vulnerable part of us that carries the pain that was never properly acknowledged or healed. This inner child lives inside each of us, silently influencing our feelings, our relationships, and even our self-esteem. How many times have you felt that a small criticism opened a disproportionate wound? Or avoided pursuing a dream because, deep down, you believed you weren't worthy? These reactions do not arise from the present, but from old, unresolved pain. Complexes and the wounded child act as internal guardians, trying to protect us from the possibility of being hurt again. Repetition, compulsion is another mechanism that reinforces these patterns. Without realizing it, we recreate situations that echo our initial wounds, unconsciously seeking a new chance for healing. We choose relationships that reject us, procrastinate on important projects, and impose limits on ourselves that do not match our true abilities. All of this is a distorted attempt to resolve old traumas. It's essential to understand that these complexes are not personal flaws. At some point, they were legitimate emotional survival strategies. The problem is that if we don't become aware of them, we continue to react as if we are still trapped in the same circumstances of the past. Looking at the wounded inner child is an act of maturity and courage. It's not about eliminating that part, but about listening to it, welcoming it, and building a new relationship with it. By bringing these pains into the light of consciousness, we break the cycle of repetition and make space for freer, more authentic choices. True emotional freedom is born from the encounter with this forgotten part of ourselves. Embracing the inner child is, at its core, embracing our own humanity. It's common to imagine that sabotaging oneself is a mistake or weakness that needs to be fixed. However, for Jung, this behavior has a vital function: to protect the inner balance of the psyche. As destructive as it may seem, this dynamic follows a logic. It arises as a response from the unconscious when we try to move forward unilaterally without considering the forces we've left behind. The unconscious constantly seeks balance between opposites. When the ego forces a direction, suppressing emotions, ignoring fears, faking a self-confidence that isn't real, the unconscious intervenes. This intervention can manifest as blockages, delays, unexpected withdrawals. Jung called this phenomenon enantiodromia, the emergence of the opposite as a mechanism of internal correction. Imagine someone who tries to stay only in the light, denying their fragilities. To others, this person appears unshakable, but internally the tension builds. The unconscious, sensing the risk of psychic breakdown, activates mechanisms that interrupt this forced path. Sudden illnesses appear, inexplicable failures occur, or emotional paralysis sets in and prevents further steps. These signals do not arise to punish, but to restore balance. Another essential role of this dynamic is to contain the uncontrolled growth of the ego. Jung warned that an inflated ego, the belief in one's invulnerability, is just as dangerous as self-denial. When someone disconnects from humility and the awareness of their own limits, unconscious forces organize to slow down this expansion, bringing the individual back to reality. Additionally, this process works as a cry for attention. Each time we delay an important dream or destroy something we love, we're not just making a mistake. We are unconsciously trying to draw attention to internal aspects that have been neglected. Behind the delay or fear, there are important messages waiting to be heard. In daily life, these manifestations appear at the most unexpected times. You prepare for a big step, and suddenly you get sick. A promising project nears completion, and you lose interest. At first glance, it seems like bad luck or misfortune, but a deeper analysis reveals the functioning of inner forces seeking to restore lost harmony. Recognizing this movement changes the way we see our blockages. Instead of blaming ourselves or feeling incapable, we can ask, what part of me is trying to protect me? What fear or pain needs to be acknowledged? Understanding this dynamic transforms our relationship with the unconscious. We stop seeing self-blocking as an enemy and start seeing it as an invitation to grow in a more integrated, conscious, and truly free way. Understanding the shadow is only the beginning. True transformation occurs when we are able to consciously integrate these hidden contents. Jung knew that becoming aware of the shadow was not enough. It was necessary to give voice and form to these forgotten parts, bringing them into real life through consistent practices. One of the most powerful tools Jung proposed was dream analysis. For him, dreams are direct communications from the unconscious, filled with symbols that reveal what the conscious mind ignores or resists seeing. Often, the shadow appears in dreams as threatening figures, wild animals, or uncomfortable situations. Interpreting these images does not mean seeking literal meanings, but understanding the emotions and conflicts that are being symbolically presented. Writing down dreams as soon as we wake up, reflecting on the feelings they provoke, and questioning what these symbols want to reveal are practices that deepen the dialogue with the unconscious. Even without understanding everything right away, this attention already begins a process of connection and healing. Another fundamental practice is active imagination. Jung created this technique to promote conscious contact with inner images and contents. It involves relaxing the mind and allowing scenes, characters, or emotions to arise spontaneously. Instead of repressing these manifestations, we are invited to dialogue with them, giving them space to reveal their message and purpose. This approach opens the path to integrate rejected aspects without inner conflict. Instead of fighting impulses and fears, we learn to know them, understand them, and transform them into allies in the growth process. Additionally, observing our symbolic behaviors is essential. When we procrastinate, feel anger, or freeze in the face of challenges, there is always something hidden trying to express itself. Facing these behaviors not as failures, but as signs, allows us to investigate deep needs that have been neglected. Creative expression also plays a vital role in shadow integration. Painting, writing, dancing, music. Any form of spontaneous art functions as a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious. In these activities, repressed emotions find a voice, and hidden contents gain visible form. Jung saw art not as an aesthetic pursuit, but as a means of healing and inner revelation. Integrating the shadow is a gradual process. It does not occur in a linear or quick way. Each encounter with these denied parts expands our awareness and makes us more whole. Over time, we realize that what we feared to carry is, in fact, a source of strength, creativity, and authenticity. Looking at the shadow is not succumbing to darkness, but rescuing the light that was forgotten. Each part embraced makes our existence more true, richer, and freer. Many people go through life living only fragments of who they truly are. They make choices to please others, repress genuine impulses, and follow safe paths that silently drain their vitality. For Carl Jung, this disconnection is not accidental. It is the inevitable result of ignoring our deepest essence, and the way out of this emptiness is the journey of individuation. Individuation, according to Jung, is not an abstract concept but a vital necessity. It is the process of becoming what one is in essence, integrating conscious and unconscious, reason and emotion, light and shadow. It is a courageous movement to take responsibility for oneself, to recognize one's wounds and potentials, without seeking an idealized image of perfection. This journey begins when we stop projecting our conflicts onto others and turn our gaze inward. Instead of blaming the world for our pain, we understand that each wound carries within it an opportunity for growth. At this point, shadow integration becomes fundamental. It's not about eliminating what is uncomfortable, but bringing into consciousness what was repressed so it can be transformed. True psychological maturity is born from the ability to hold internal contradictions. Love and anger, courage and fear, generosity and selfishness, all coexisting within the same being. The mature adult is not the one who eliminated their conflicts, but the one who has learned to navigate them without losing their center. Existential crises, seen by Jung as moments of transition, are an essential part of this journey. When certainties collapse, the initial impulse is fear and loss. But through the lens of individuation, crisis is an invitation to reconstruction, a chance to leave behind old masks and move closer to one's own truth. The transcendence of opposites, another central concept in Jung's psychology, sustains this process. Instead of choosing between extremes, the individual learns to live the paradox, to unite within themselves seemingly opposing forces. The transcendent function, a mechanism that emerges from the confrontation between polarities, allows new possibilities of being to be revealed. In everyday life, this transformation appears in simple gestures, asking for help without shame, saying no without guilt, acknowledging limits without despair, understanding that growth implies pain, but remaining stuck hurts even more. Individuation is not a final destination, but a continuous journey of encounters and reunions with the self. Each loss, each rupture, each discovery expands our wholeness. And, deep down, this is true freedom, to live authentically, connected to one's own soul, no longer needing to deny who you are in order to survive. Self-sabotage is not a character flaw, nor a defect that must be forcibly eliminated. It is a calling, a sign that there are parts of you asking to be recognized, healed, and integrated. Ignoring this message is to perpetuate a cycle of pain and frustration. Listening to this call, on the other hand, is to begin the most important journey there is, the journey of becoming who you truly are. Carl Jung revealed that within each of us dwells a vast, still unknown territory, made of light and shadow, of gifts and wounds. Denying this complexity keeps us trapped in automatic patterns and choices that betray us. Looking inward with courage and compassion is the first step to breaking free from this cycle. If you want to start this transformation, reserve small daily moments of silence to observe your feelings without judgment. Write down your dreams, no matter how strange they seem. Ask yourself, in the face of self-sabotage, what fear or hidden need is trying to emerge. And above all, practice the art of expression. Write, draw, move your body, allow what was hidden to find a way to surface. True freedom does not come from winning external battles, but from integrating what exists inside you. The process is challenging, yes, but also profoundly liberating. Because when you embrace who you truly are, every choice, every step, every achievement becomes more genuine. The path is before you, and the decision to begin is yours. If you enjoyed this content and want to understand more about life's questions, subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who is also one of the awakened.